Good afternoon. Thanks to everybody for being here. Talk a couple words about Saturday, and then certainly look forward to this week's game here. As I said after the game, disappointed with the outcome certainly, but not the effort. I thought our guys gave good effort and competed hard, and coming off the field, I felt that way, and I think the tape verified that. So, you go back to the game. We knew going in that execution was going to be really paramount. And then taking advantage of any opportunities or creating opportunities, and play a team like that. The margin for wiggle room is pretty slim there. So just a quick example in that first half. We were having a hard time getting off the field off defensively, and then offensively we had two early possessions where didn't make a what I thought was convertible 3rd and 3, and then I think it was the next possession we missed a pass that would have given us probably 2nd and 2, maybe a first down, that type of thing. So, just illustrations. Those are the things that we have to be able to do if we're going to be able to, continue to sustain a drive. And then a game like that, that's really critical because it's a two-way street as far as that time of possession. Both sides have ownership. So. And then also, I think, special teams-wise, we really didn't impact the game, and we had a great respect for their specialists. But we never really influenced the game or impacted the game anyway on special teams. So I thought it was better in the second half, saw some progress there. I thought our guys fought hard and then overcame some really tough circumstances too, and then fought to the end. So, some positives that came out of the game. Looked at the tape on Sunday, made the corrections that needed to be made, and then obviously have shifted our focus forward here. And heading into this week against Illinois, same 4 captains. It seems like we're locked in a little bit, at least 6 weeks now with you got Jack, Sam, Kayvon, and Riley as our captains. Injury-wise, not a lot to report other than looks like, Terry Roberts is doing better. He's pretty limited last week. Didn't play much in the game, and he's having a better week of practice right now, so that's encouraging. Hopefully we'll get him back this week, and that'll help our depth a little bit in the back end. And then, obviously facing a big challenge this weekend, traveling on the road, night game again, and playing an Illinois team right now. It's playing really well. Basically, they're 3 points away from being undefeated and coming off a very impressive road win up in Madison. So, last week, just look at that game in itself. They played really good team football, complemented each other, took advantage of what the situations they did create, and, got a really good road win there. 2 big stats, I think, that factored into the game, and it's a credit to Illinois. They're +3 on the turnover takeaway margin and, controlled the ball, rushing the ball, but they made plays in the passing game, too, that were really impressive, and they held Wisconsin to a deficit in the rush game. I think it was 2 yards total. So, you look at their football team, they're strong up front on both sides. They've got a good running back, an outstanding running back, not just a good running back, very productive. The receivers are making plays. Quarterback is a newcomer who has done a very, very nice job for him. He's playing really well right now. And then defensively, they're pretty much nationally ranked in every category, just doing a really good job there. A little bit of a unique preparation for sure. And, those stats that they've got, they've earned. They're really playing well right now, playing with confidence and very, very aggressive. So, they're a talented football team, very confident football team, and again, we're going on the road to play in a really tough environment. So it's going to be a big challenge for us moving forward here. And then last but not least, our kid captain is Cormac Faley, who's a 12-year-old from Asbury, fighting leukemia for a lot of his life, and then had his last treatment 2 years ago. Doing really well, so obviously he won't be with us at the game, but certainly be in our thoughts. So just wanted to throw that in there as well. And I'll throw it out for questions.
Going up against another team that can really run the ball effectively, as you were mentioning earlier, how do you make sure this is a better outcome than last week with Blake Corum?
A lot of the same challenges because these guys are really balanced. They're doing a good job in the passing game and diverse with what they do, a lot of different things in their attack. So they make you, defend the entire field, and, and then the back's very not the same as last week, but similar in that he's a really tough runner. He really runs hard and makes extra yards, and he was really good last year too. So, and they've lost a couple guys off the offensive line, but they got a JC transfer who's done a really good job, and they're still good up front. So we got a big challenge. We're just gonna have to do a little bit better getting off blocks and hopefully getting to the ball a little bit better.
Kirk, everybody talks about Illinois' running game, but it seems like Tommy DeVito maybe has provided them more stability at quarterback. I mean, how vital has he been to just really kind of making that offense click?
Yeah, he's been playing better and better week by week, which is, being a newcomer, you'd kind of expect that. I thought he played a great game Saturday and made some really nice throws. And then the receivers went up and made some plays too, which helps on top of it. But, it wasn't just one guy. They had three receivers really pitch in and, do a nice job making contributions. And they overcame some crazy circumstances too. And went for it on fourth down a couple times and converted that and had a touchdown call back and then turned right back around and got another, still went in there and converted. So they did a good job.
Kirk, it's not even halfway through the season yet, and 2 Big Ten coaches have already been fired. Are you surprised by that?
Today or 10 years ago? No, not at all. Disappointed, but not surprised. I think it's the 5th one this season, right? So that the toll's mounted. Ball kind of got rolling last year. I think that to me, when I always think of that topic, the first thing, the one big one I remember was USC. First, second week of the year, and my question would be if it's that bad, then why didn't you do it a year ago or half a year ago? But it's a world we're living in right now, so I'm not surprised but disappointed.
Would you ever anticipate changing up your staff in the middle of a season?
For what purpose?
Any purpose. I mean,
if you thought it was going to serve an end, yeah, absolutely. But I've never been in that situation as an assistant or a head coach. Certainly as an assistant, I never thought I should be changed. I mean, that was never on my mind. Not the whole time. Easy.
but in relation to Paul Christ, though, I mean, the success that he's had, 67 and 26, and even their down period has been 60% winning percentage. Did that catch you off guard, just knowing the way Wisconsin usually operates?
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising. It's surprising. Like I said, it's not surprising, but it's surprising. Yeah, you think about the success they've had, but again, I'm not privy to all the details. I'm not there, so I can't comment on a specific, any one specific. Although I just brought up USC, that one kind of caught me off guard at that point, just because of it was week 1 or 2. That was surprising to me. But what you never know is what's going on behind the scenes, and so I don't want to give commentary on one specific situation. Broad-based, so I think it's kind of like us picking up 2 schools from the West Coast into the Big Ten. We're just living in different times right now, operating in a different world, and we live in a very reactionary world right now too. That's obvious, and the fact that most of expansion's been driven by TV, I believe, at least with that in mind, and that's not. I'm going back 10 years there now, so. We basically are in the entertainment industry, and some things come with that, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing. So it's, in some ways, we're becoming a little bit more like the NFL. I wish we had as many. I wish we had the structure the NFL had. That's one wish I would make, and maybe in the future we will.
Do you think the television revenue is encouraging schools to act quickly like this, knowing that there's so much money coming in that they can cover it?
Well, again, I don't know all those details, but it's a world we're living in right now. It's just, it's a results-driven business, and it always has been. That's not new. But there's a lot of other things going on in college football, and I've coached in both arenas. When you coach in the NFL, there is no responsibility, accountability towards the players' graduation, towards their personal lives. That somebody else deals with all that, and that we didn't deal with graduation. So. I think that's one of the rewarding parts about college is seeing people that are really changing, kind of like high school coaching. You're watching kids or young people in real developmental years of their lives. And, the 2002 team was just here 20 years later, and now you see these guys as young adults, or even Tony was here last week at this time, who younger than those guys yet, starting his family, all those kinds of things. Those are the fun parts about college coaching. You really kind of miss that in the NFL. But so anyway, it's a little different. It's a little different terrain coaching in college. I guess I've always looked at it differently, and but it's again, times are changing. We all know that. I mean, just NIL transfer portal.
Never going back. Do you think it'll ever go back to anywhere?
I don't think it can right now. But I think my biggest concern about college football is just our lack of structure right now. There's really no framework, a firm framework that we're operating from, whereas in the NFL it's very, very clearly defined. every part about it's very clearly defined. And, and that's one of the things I've always enjoyed about working here is like, you walk in every morning knowing what the expectations are. And they've been very consistent, so, but yeah, we live in a changing world. We all know that, and you got to change with the times.
Spencer was talking about earlier, with 6-game season and a 6-game season separated by a bye week, every game's important. Is there maybe more of an importance getting a win going into that bye week, getting momentum going into that week of rest, you think?
It's like winning a bowl game. It's a lot better to go in the off season after a victory. So yeah, really, to that point, there's no downside to winning games ever that I can think of. So, and there's really not much upside from losing. But, what we've tried to do, and it's so cliche and so mundane, but it's just, it's week to week in college football, in any football, any football level I've ever coached at, all three of them. You just try to focus on the opponent and matching up as best you can. And, right now we're fully focused on that because we have to be. We're playing a really good football team that's playing very, very well. And, we'll reassess things once we get to Sunday. And the only reason it's 6-6, that's how the schedule flew out or, shook out. Nothing too creative there.
Gavin Williams has been quiet lately. Is that injury, workload related, or just schematics, or what's kind of the cause of that?
Well, it's only been, 1 week or 2 weeks? I'm losing track now. Where we had both guys, I guess 2 weeks now with LeSean back too. So, Gavin was out for quite a while, longer than we thought, and the injury was a little bit more extensive than we had hoped initially. And he's working his way back. The other guys are doing a good job, and the way I look at it, right now we have 3 guys that we have confidence in, which is one more than we did maybe 2 weeks ago. So that's good news, and he'll get his share.
You mentioned their aggressiveness on defense. Wisconsin only got 2 yards rushing. That catches your eye right away. What do they do defensively against the run that presents such a problem?
Well, when you watch them, there's a lot of guys up there. You'll see that right off the bat, and so it just makes it a little tougher to create run lanes. And their linebackers, fill pretty well. They know where to get and where to fit. And I think the biggest thing is they're very well coached. Team-wise, and that's true no matter what your defensive style may be or whatever your scheme may be, but you're going to see more guys up on the line than you would typically. But the key thing, I think, is they're well coached and they know where to be, when to be there, that type of thing, so they don't leave big seams for you. It's hard to create them. So that's going to be our challenge, is just trying to, I'm sure they'll have a wrinkle or two, but they pretty much are what they are, which most good teams are like that. We sure as hell knew where Mississippi State was. We just didn't know what to do about it. So, that's a challenge. You're just trying to, only bring them up because of the statistics, where they rank statistically. So the challenge is to try to, find a way to, block them, basically, is what it gets down to, and that's easier said than done. Nobody's really done it very well.
You seem to be getting some good numbers when you do run a jet sweep or jet motion, just whether it's in the pass or the run. Are you getting what you want out of that? Do you feel like there's a room to take it to another level? I'm not saying run it every play or anything, but just...
They definitely have a role and a place to fit in with your offense. You can't make a living on them, but you certainly can complement what you're doing. I think, and part of that, you have to have somebody who's capable of taking the ball and going with it too. So I feel like we have that, that we'll continue to use those. Mm-hmm.
Is the main focus for that just to kind of create uncertainty eyes-wise at the second level to, okay,
Sure.
There's movement?
Yeah, just try to, get people to settle a little bit and not just run to the ball, which is, again, I'll divert this whole topic. That's part of my problem with the rules that we're making right now. Guys on defense can just fly to the football and not have to play blocks, but at least that's another way to do it without getting in trouble with the rules people.
Did you supply anything to the Big Ten or hear from the Big Ten about any of the officiating stuff we discussed on Saturday?
Yeah, we're going to send a tape in. We're in the process of doing that. And I just had a text exchange with someone in the office and just asked them to, consider looking at it. If we could, I just want to get some more explanation on a couple things, that's all. So that's hardly urgent because, this game's in the books. But we'll have a conversation, and it'll be good. They're always good with information.
YA, does he have any chance to come back this week? Or
Not this week, I don't
Deontay?
think, but he's on the upward path right now, so it's encouraging.
Deontay, any chance?
Not this week, no, really nothing new. Just Terry looks good, so we'll see.
The offense looked a lot better late in the third quarter of that one drive. Looking at the film, is it encouraging to see the improvements, even though it happened maybe a little later in the game? Is all improvement created equal? You know what I'm saying?
No, and that's what I was trying to articulate on Saturday. I felt like, from the sideline, I felt like we were growing and making progress. And, that's a feel thing. That's not the best seat in the house over there on the sideline. But the film confirmed that. And I thought, I get to peek at the replay board at least, so you see some little things maybe that you didn't see a week before, 2 weeks before. And those things were there. So it's encouraging. That's why I referenced those 2 drives in the first half. Like, those are makeable plays. We just didn't make them, and we need to make those if we're going to expect to drive the ball, especially against a tough opponent, which we faced last week. We got another one this week. So that's conference play. You got to make the plays that are out there. You got to make those, and then hopefully you can do something on top of. And we did a little of that in the second half. And we had some, whatever it was, I don't know, 30-plus yards, 2 runs that were 30-plus yards brought back. But the good news is, we're in negative situations due to the penalties and overcame some of those. So that was encouraging. It was encouraging to see our guys fight through that and play through that and not give up because it's third and forever or whatever, second and forever. They kept playing, and that we just got to play better. We got to grow faster.
When you're game planning for a running back like Chase Brown, how important is it to, limit the big play? Because last week against Michigan, it seemed like there's only 1 or 2 runs that really broke, 10 yards.
Yep.
How important is that?
That's always important in defense. Big plays, period. The more you can make a team work, the better chance you have of getting them off the rails. But to Michigan's credit, last week they didn't. They just kept going. They were very patient, took what was there, and did a good job, and were able to sustain drives. But the odds go up that somebody's going to make mistakes if you can keep them on the field longer. But you give up the big play, boy, it's tough to overcome those. Too many of them in a game, it's good night.
What do you see as the next step in Logan Jones' development?
Just got to keep playing. He's improved every week, and we're not surprised by that. But there's only so much you can do. You can only practice so long. There's a time limitation, but just realistically, if you want to have a guy ready on Saturday, you got to be smart during the week too. So he's maximizing every snap. He's got a great attitude, and just has to keep playing.
When you have, I know you do analytics meetings, I think you've said before, Thursday mornings or something like that. Do you still do those? And what are kind of the topics that usually you hit on when you're on those?
Yeah, you're just checking to see what other people are seeing, basically, and make sure that nothing's too obvious. Although there are some things, like we all have tendencies, and I have a pretty good idea. What the main fronts we're going to see this week are. Challenges is blocking them. So the better your team is, the more predictable you can become. But you're just making routine checks to see what things look like from the other people looking across the ball at you.
So basically, if they say, hey, you throw the ball, if it's 3rd and 5 and beyond, you throw the ball 95% of the time. That's the kind of, and just.
It is, but I would say this too. I go through. We do the same thing on the opponents that we play, and I look at those numbers, and predictably 3rd and longer, the pass numbers. And same thing with personnel groups too. So most people are fairly, consistent with what they do. Not just like, one opponent, but week to week to week. Situations really dictate a lot of times. Now, that being said, some teams on first down maybe, 70% run, and the next team might be 30% run, if you're playing Mississippi State. So you got those things too. But usually teams are fairly consistent to their personality.
How do you get a team to grow faster?
I wish I knew. I mean, that's we run that race each and every year. And again, that's college football, and the NFL too has become a little bit like college in some ways, because when free agency opened up, the days of the old Redskins or the old Steelers or the old Dolphins or the Dallas Cowboys teams' rosters changed. So every year's a new year. You got new chemistry, more younger players playing in the NFL, and that's always been that way in college football. Although I would suggest or argue that the last couple of years we're kind of leaning even more to younger guys with more. You got more guys coming out early, and you've got more players coming in early. So everything's kind of moved over a little bit. So I think you see more younger players on the field, and it's just how well can they utilize the practice snaps they get, how smart and how attentive can they be in meetings, because that's another way to grow and learn. And so it's a race you run every year, and it's not like anybody's got a great head start on it.
Kirk, I think you've mentioned that you've liked the way the offensive line is trending. I'm just wondering, how would you assess the past couple of weeks specifically in their growth, and what kind of gives you confidence in the offensive line's trajectory going forward?
Just one quick example, and I mentioned, the nice thing about the replay board. We had a couple good runs to our right, and one of our younger guys in there reacted to something that was the way they were playing that run, the defense was. And I'll promise you, 3 weeks ago, he never would have seen it. So that gave me encouragement. Little things like that, just little intricacies that take some time. It takes some preparation, study, all those kinds of things. But you can have a great week during the week. Show them on tape, hey, this may happen. You're going to have to do this if it does happen. And you get out there on Saturday, and it's like, huh? Just straight down the tracks, train tracks. So that shows you a guy's mind's working, and he's taking coaching and really paying attention and starting to see more. And that to your question, Steve, is like, that experience is this versus this. And that's, being able to see a little bit more than what's straight in front of you. But younger players tend to be kind of looking down a hallway instead of, having a bigger picture.
Brian told us a story about when he was a player. Basically, during freshman year, he was getting his butt kicked in conditioning, and Brett Bielema, an assistant at the time, put his arm around him and said, something along the lines of, "You're doing all right, kid." And he said, as an 18-year-old, I really needed to hear that. Does that story sound familiar to you? If Brian hasn't told you specifically about that one, does that sound like something Bielema would do?
It is, yeah. And I mean, that's hopefully good coaches do that. With each other and then with players, certainly most important with players, and guys need encouragement. Everybody needs encouragement. And I think it's always helpful too when, it comes from a different position. If it's your positional player, it's kind of like raising your own kids, when they hear your voice and half the time they don't listen to it. But I think it can be really more impactful when a different position player compliments a player. And then when it's across the ball, it's even better. But we all need that. We all need some encouragement, especially when things are a little bit bumpy.
Illinois made a change with Bielema, whatever it was, a year ago. But now you see your other border states making changes here, Nebraska, Wisconsin. Does that give you, how do you feel about your position, I guess, seeing all this change around you compared to obviously a picture of stability?
I'm not sure. You're working a little bit ahead of me on this one. Like, it just dawned on me there's 2 border states where there's changes, and I hadn't thought about it in those terms. It's the business we're in, and we all know that. I mean, we all signed up for it. We all know that. It's just changing, that's all. And in my case, when I signed up, it's way different than it was when I signed up. Not as much for maybe some of the more recent guys, but again, it's just the world we live in, and you'd be naive not to understand it's part of what can happen and does happen. I still, I just go back to my roots. I grew up in a place where, the pro team just happened to hire a guy in 1969 that nobody had heard of, and then they hired another guy 20 years later nobody had ever heard of, and same thing last time they did it. So they've hired 3 coaches in 50 years that really nobody heard of, and they've done really well as any organization out there. And to me, philosophically, the challenge is more like if you're in a competitive endeavor, you understand that it's tough. It's tough to be successful, and it's tough to be at the top. So when you're not, you focus on solutions and working through things rather than just, throwing bodies out and trying again with another. And there's a million teams that have tried that over the last 50 years, and not many of them have had a lot of luck getting traction. Look at the teams right now in the NFL, and my world's pretty simplistic. The best teams in the NFL have had pretty good stability for the most part. There's some exceptions to every rule, but you think of a couple of organizations that have won a lot of Super Bowls, and there's pretty good continuity there, and I think you got a better chance that way. But that's just one person's opinion.
Do you have those conversations with your administration here, like about the importance of patience or the importance of long-term thinking?
I haven't really had to. I mean, and that's one of the things I appreciate. I think I've been able to. I've been really lucky in my career. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, I've been places where it's people are pretty reasonable. They understand competition, and they help you work through things. And that's to me that's there's only 2 ways to do it. If you hit adversity, you can just trash the thing and then start over again, or you try to work through it. But for whatever reason, it's just kind of worked out, and I'm appreciative of that. I've always been appreciative of working in a good, stable environment. Don't take it for granted.
In the NFL, a lot of teams operate similar type blocking system as you do.
Mm-hmm.
They have other wrinkles, but they're professional players, so they don't have a 20-hour rule per week. How difficult is it, or is it difficult at all, to incorporate more changes within what you want to do foundationally, based on the fact that there's limitations with the players and what, their time allotment to learn something like that, something different.
Yeah, I mean, I would even argue, one thing I don't miss about the NFL, like their limitations are crazier than, not that ours are crazy, I don't think ours are crazy, but theirs are really, they've been handcuffed in, one person's opinion. I think, the guys that help make the CBA, form the CBA are usually veteran guys. And so, it kind of favors guys that know what they're doing, as opposed to younger guys coming up the way. But, to be a line coach right now, a friend of mine who was contemplating going back to the NFL this offseason made a comment to me, why would I want to go to a job where, I can work with my players 5 months a year. Whereas when I went to the NFL, I got to work with younger guys in February, March. You could do that and help bring them along and train them. So their rules have really changed dramatically. And, I think the biggest thing is equal across the board. And that's my biggest complaint in college football right now is, the rules we abide by or the way we operate is not consistent across the board. Whereas in the NFL, at least all 32 teams have the same rules. So who can do the best with that? Those guidelines and those restrictions or, whatever the parameters may be.
When you look at what you do and you look at, say, I don't know, the 49ers or the Rams are kind of, they're
Somewhat,
beyond that. How can you take from some of what they do and apply it to your system, or is it just too big and broad to be able to do that?
No, I think, you take from everybody. And I don't think, necessarily one system or one way of doing things is any harder than the other. It's just what you do. But yeah, hopefully, there's some people we can't get anything out of. We're not real common through Mississippi State out there. I got great admiration for Coach Leach. We got to play against each other 20-some years ago. Great admiration for what he does. It's so unique. But, for us to copy them, forget about that. So, yeah, there are some that are really just so far apart. But, yeah, you can learn from everybody and steal from everybody, and we all do that.
Sure. Going back to 1999, what was it about Bielema that made you decide to kind of keep him around?
Well, I knew him as a player, first of all. Okay, and then the story is brought up about Brian as a player here. I didn't know about, but I know Brian came to camp here somewhere in the 9 years I was gone, and Brett looked out for him there too. And just Brett had a great reputation. He had done a good job as a young coach. Not surprising based on what I knew of him as a player. And I'm not surprised he's done very well in his career since he's left here. So he was a good coach 20-some years ago, and obviously he's done a great job each and everywhere he's been. He's done a really nice job. So he's cares about people. He's a good football coach, works at it, and it's not like we're rocket scientists. I promise you that. I met one, James Van Allen. We're not in that category. So but he works hard at what he does, and does a great job.
Do you remember the note that he sent you after Brian had prospect camp here?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. He mentioned it? Yeah.
Media Day,
yeah.
Big Ten Media Day.
Absolutely, yep.
Looking at Arlen, I'm sure you expected to have a big role coming into this year, but by way of injury, he's kind of been thrusted into that wide receiver one role. How have you seen him handle that in all aspects? And then the second part of the question is, as you're getting more receivers back, how big of a piece is he going to be in the offense to get the team to where they're wanting to go?
Two things there. So, Arlen's just been great since he showed up here a year and a half ago. He's just a delightful young guy. You've met him. He's got a great personality. He's a can-do guy, eager to try anything and work hard. So that's a great starting point. He's got really good ability. He's just a guy who's you can see why his teams have won, and you can see why he won that Simone Award as a junior. Not surprising at all. So, he's an exceptional young guy. He's done a really good job this year. And, I was worried about him just getting worn out because of our lack of depth and how much work he's been doing. So I think this is all great that, now Nico's starting to be more involved. We've got Brody out there practicing and playing now. So, starting to get a little bit of a, we can spread the role a little bit. And hopefully he can get caught up here a little bit because I was worried about him just getting worn out and tired. But I think he's doing good, and he's done a really nice job as a punt returner too. And didn't take that for granted, but I'm not surprised if that makes any sense because he just seems to do whatever he does well.
Coach, I know you operate under a week-by-week basis, but just what is kind of the protocol for bye weeks among players?
Yeah, it changes week to week, but it's kind of like some people map out their entire preseason. They'll do that in June. I've never done that because things change so much, and this is a great example. This year is a great example of things. So, as I stand here right now, and I've kind of got a mental picture of what we're going to do. I haven't put anything on paper, but I've got a mental picture. I think probably the single most important thing right now is make sure we rest a lot of guys. We just talked about a guy like Arlen, who's done a lot of things now. This would be 10 weeks, I believe, right, if you include camp. So I think for a guy like him right now, the biggest thing is just let him catch his breath a little bit and get ready for the last 6 weeks. And so it's year to year and player to player, quite frankly. So we'll figure out something that makes sense for everybody. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kirk.
Thanks, everyone.